Good morning, everyone. I'm Shauna and welcome to Blast TV. This term, we've been learning about wisdom, and we're going to follow on today, learning about someone who was very wise. You may remember that we learned about King David and how he loved God and learnt to trust God's promises and how wise that was. We're going to learn about his son today, King Solomon, who took over being king of Israel when David died. King Solomon loved God very much, and he showed his love by obeying God and doing what he said. To read from my beginner's Bible today, some of you have this at home, so you could read it again later. The wise king. King Solomon loved God very much. God spoke to him in a dream. Ask for anything you want, God said. Wow, amazing. Solomon loved God, and now God was asking Solomon that he could have anything he wanted. What you would ask God for if he asked you for anything you wanted. King Solomon would have had a lot of choices of things he could have asked God for. He could have asked God to be rich and have lots and lots of money. But he didn't ask God for that. He could have asked God to be strong, so he would have lots of power and people would do what he said. But that's not what King Solomon asked for. He could have asked God to be famous, and then everyone would know him, like these famous people. But that's not what Solomon asked for. He could have asked God to be healthy, and so he could live a long, long life and be very, very old. But that's not what Solomon asked for. Let's see what Solomon asked for. King Solomon answered, "Give me wisdom so that I will know the difference between right and wrong." God was very pleased with Solomon's answer. "I will give wisdom to you," God said, "and I will also give you riches and strength, and you will be very famous, and you will be healthy and live a long life." So God was pleased with Solomon's choice and blessed him with all those things as well. King Solomon was wiser than any other person. He spoke 3,000 proverbs or wise sayings and wrote over 1,000 songs. He knew many things about all the plants and animals. King Solomon became very famous. People from all over the world came to see him. The Queen of Sheba came from far away to ask him questions. He was very wise. King Solomon answered all her questions. Then the Queen said, "You truly are a wise king. May the Lord your God be praised." King Solomon ordered thousands of workers to build a temple for God. When the temple was finished, it was beautiful. And King Solomon planned a celebration. And I've got a picture here of the temple that King Solomon built. Solomon's temple. That was the temple he built so the people would have somewhere to worship God. What a wise thing King Solomon did. And you can see here that That's that gold ark, the chest we learnt about, that King David brought to Jerusalem so the people would know that God was always with them. And that ark was taken into the temple so that people would know that God was with them. And the other thing we learned about the ark was in that ark were the 10 commandments, the rules that God gave us to teach us the way to follow him, the best way to live, to love God and love each other. So the people would know that they were the best way to live, and that was the wisest way to live, was to follow God. So that was taken into Solomon's temple, and the people were very pleased that they had somewhere to remind them that God was with them and to remind them of the wisest way to live, to love God and love each other. So they had a big celebration when the temple opened up. The people thanked God and celebrated what King Solomon had built for them. And all the people of Israel came to see the temple. They were happy to have a place to worship God. They all said, God is good. His love lasts forever. Wow, how good was that? That King Solomon could help the people know that God loved them and his love lasts forever. What a wise king. Well, we can be like Solomon. God's wisdom wasn't just for Solomon. We're going to learn a verse later, but that verse tells us that if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. That's not just me or the Prime Minister, it's also us. You, children, anyone can ask God for wisdom. And I wonder what it means to be wise. It's not just being clever and knowing all the answers. Being wise is all the things we've learnt this term. It's following God. Being wise is trusting God. We learnt last week with Jesus' disciples trusted him on the boat. Being wise is knowing God keeps his promises. Being wise is following God's rules and obeying him by loving him and loving each other. We learnt how King David was wise when he didn't kill King Saul when he had the chance. Instead of taking revenge, he showed love and kindness. That was wise. Living God's way is wise. Trusting God is wise. And we can ask God to be wise and make good choices to follow him too. So let's think about that this week and look at ways we can be wise too, just like King Solomon.
Hello, Shauna.
Oh, Missy, you gave me a fright.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I just came back from having breakfast.
Oh, what did you have?
A nice big bowl of chocolate mousse. My favourite.
Mousse. Oh, Missy, I was hoping you'd say something healthy like porridge, chocolate mousse. That doesn't sound very healthy.
Yeah, that's how I roll. Anyway, what have you been looking at in the Bible?
Well, we've been learning about King Solomon.
Ooh.
And God asked King Solomon if he could have anything, what would he want?
Oh, boy, anything.
Anything at
Whoa.
all.
Hmm.
What would you want, Moosey?
I guess I'd want a really big swimming pool full of chocolate mousse.
Oh, Moosey, I think you've just got chocolate mousse on your mind. Well,
I'm swimming it every day.
Well, King Solomon didn't ask for chocolate mousse.
Oh, really?
He asked for wisdom.
Wisdom?
And
what's that?
Well, wisdom's knowing the difference between what God thinks is right and what God thinks is wrong, and following what God thinks is right.
Oh, so like making good decisions.
Yes, making good choices and being kind and trusting God and trusting his promises.
Boy, that Solomon sounds like a pretty wise guy.
He was very wise, very wise. And I'm just reading here in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 5a, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, So if you don't have wisdom and you need it, just ask God for it and he will give it to you and help you to be wise.
That sounds good.
It's really
Just
good.
ask God for wisdom and that will help you make good choices.
Yes, I think that would be a good thing for you to do, Moosey.
I'll do it over my lunchtime bowl of chocolate mousse.
More chocolate mousse? Oh, Moosey. Well, we've learned a lot about being wise, and I thought we'd do something new this week. I'm going to ask you to pause the video, and I've got some questions for you to talk about with your family. What did Solomon ask for? What does it mean to be wise? How do we get wisdom? And what are some ways you can be wise this week?
When Solomon was king, he was so wise that people would come from near and far, like the Queen of Sheba, to give him tricky questions that he had to think through and give them a wise answer for. And that would have been pretty challenging. And today we are going to make a challenge with things from around the house. Okay, first thing you're going to need is a paper plate. And on the paper plate, let's write our Bible verse for the week. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. James 1:5a. And that will hopefully remind us that even when things feel a bit tricky, we can ask God for wisdom. So now let's make our tricky challenge. You will need a wooden spoon or spatula or something like that and put it on the back of the plate and then get a bit of masking tape and stick it on with some masking tape. You'll then need a balloon. I'm going to be yellow like a king's crown and blow that up. Tie that up. You might need to ask parents to help you with that. And then you can put on the plate and you can do, and we're going to do something fun with this. Okay, once you have your balloon challenges, and Mum's made one too, Shauna's got one as well. So you now need to have some family races with these. So we're going to race around this chair and back to the table, and the first one who gets back wins. You can make up your own racetracks around the house. So the rule is it's got to stay on the plate, your balloon, and you got to move with it like that. Okay. I'll say ready, set, go. Okay. Ready, set, go. I won! Yes! Yes, there you go.
Okay,
I won the challenge.
Let's do it again.
Oh, okay.
Best of five.
What? No, best of five. We don't have time. Okay, let's go. And go.
In the lead this time.
Okay, best of three. I think best of three.
Right,
We don't have time for
now
that.
it's
Okay.
one more.
And go.
Oh,
Yes.
well done,
Okay, there we go. Well done. Good game.
Enjoy this.
Okay. Time for a prayer.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this morning. I've certainly enjoyed talking to you again this week, and especially talking about how we can be wise. So we're going to finish with a prayer. I'd like you all to close your eyes and say Amen with me at the end. Dear God, thank you so much that you love us and you give us good things. Thank you that we can ask you for wisdom and you will help us to know the wisest way to live and how to love and follow you every day. Amen. Thanks so much for watching. Look forward to seeing you next Sunday.